Parrot rejected at auction is bought by a young man, and what happens next? Please listen until the end to be amazed by this story. Uriah's brilliant grey feathers ruffled as he watched potential buyers pass by his cage without a second glance. The auction house buzzed with activity, but no one seemed interested in an African grey parrot with piercing amber eyes and an unusual scar above his beak. Charles, the auction manager, had placed him between a collection of exotic fish and a pedigree Maine Coon cat, hoping someone would take notice. But after hours of being ignored, even Charles' optimism was fading. Final call for lot number 47, African grey parrot, starting bid reduced to $50, Charles announced, his voice tinged with resignation. The crowd remained silent. Uriah tilted his head, observing the sea of disinterested faces. He'd been at Victor's exotic pet store for years before the elderly man had fallen ill. Now, with Victor gone, Uriah found himself on the auction block, unwanted and overlooked. In the back of the room, Harper shifted uncomfortably. He hadn't planned on coming to the auction at all, but Connor had dragged him along, insisting it would be more interesting than spending another evening alone in his apartment. Harper had agreed reluctantly, and now, as he watched the magnificent bird being dismissed by the crowd, something stirred within him. "Going once," Charles called out, scanning the room hopefully. Harper studied the parrot, noticing the intelligent gleam in its eyes. Unlike the other animals that seemed listless or agitated in their temporary enclosures, this bird maintained a dignified demeanor, almost as if it understood its situation and refused to beg for attention. "Going twice," Charles continued, his gavel poised to seal the parrot's fate. $50, Harper called out, surprising himself as much as Connor, who turned to him with wide eyes. Charles' face brightened. "We have $50 from the gentleman in the back. Do I hear 60? The room remained silent, the crowd already turning their attention to the catalogue, checking what would be up next. "Sold to the gentleman in the back for $50, Charles announced, bringing down his gavel with a sense of relief. At least the bird wouldn't have to be sent to the rescue shelter, which was already overcrowded. As Harper approached the front to claim his unexpected purchase, Connor trailed behind him, shaking his head. "What are you doing? You don't know the first thing about taking care of a parrot." Harper ignored him, his attention fixed on the bird who was now watching him with what appeared to be curious interest. There was something about this parrot that had called to him, though he couldn't explain what. After completing the paperwork and receiving basic care instructions, Harper found himself walking out of the auction house with a large cage containing his new companion. The parrot remained silent during the drive home, observing Harper with those intelligent eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Harper's small apartment wasn't ideal for a pet, especially one that needed space to move and explore. He set the cage in the corner of his living room, opening the door uncertainly. "You can come out if you want," he offered, not sure if the bird would understand or even trust him enough to emerge. Uriah remained perched inside, studying his new surroundings carefully. Harper sighed, settling onto his couch. "I don't blame you for being cautious. My name, S. Harper, by the way. I guess I should have thought this through better, but something told me not to let you go to the shelter." To his surprise, the parrot responded with a soft, "Hello." Harper sat up straighter. "You can talk?" "Hello," Uriah repeated, his voice clearer this time. Victor gone. The mention of his previous owner's name sent a chill down Harper's spine. "You remember Victor?" The parrot bobbed his head in what appeared to be affirmation. "Victor gone. Uriah here." "Your name is Uriah?" Harper asked, astonished at the bird's ability to communicate. "Uriah," the parrot confirmed, finally stepping cautiously out of the cage and onto the perch Harper had hastily attached to the outside. Over the next few days, Harper discovered that Uriah was no ordinary parrot. Not only did he have an extensive vocabulary, but he seemed to understand context, responding appropriately to questions and even initiating conversations. Harper found himself talking to Uriah about his day, his job at the local publishing house, and even his dreams of becoming a writer himself someday. "Cooper wants the manuscript by Friday," Harper told Uriah one evening while preparing dinner. "But I haven't even started the edits." "Work, work, work," Uriah replied, mimicking Harper's stressed tone perfectly. Harper laughed, surprised at how the Parrot ES company had already become a comfort. You rewrite. I should take a break sometimes. What Harper didn't realize was that Uriah's abilities went far beyond mere mimicry. The parrot observed everything with extraordinary attention to detail, processing information in ways Harper couldn't begin to understand. When Harriet, Harper's elderly neighbor, came to visit, curious about his new pet, Uriah watched her with particular interest. "What a beautiful bird," Harriet exclaimed, admiring Uriah's sleek feathers. "African greys are supposed to be the most intelligent of all parrots, you know." "He is certainly smarter than I expected," Harper admitted, watching as Uriah preened under the attention. What neither of them noticed was how carefully Uriah observed Harriet's movements, especially how she winced slightly when reaching for her tea, or how her breathing seemed labored after climbing the single flight of stairs to Harper's apartment. That night, after Harriet had gone and Harper had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from work, Uriah grew restless in his cage. He paced back and forth, occasionally glancing toward the wall that separated Harper's apartment from Harriet's. Something wasn't right. Uriah could sense it, just as clearly as he had sensed the change in Victor D's health before the end. "Help!" Uriah called out softly at first, then with increasing urgency. "Help! Harriet! Help!" Harper stirred, confused by the commotion. "Uriah, what is wrong?" "Help, Harriet, help!" the parrot insisted, flapping his wings against the cage door. Half asleep and bewildered, Harper nonetheless felt a sense of urgency in Uriah's calls. He had never heard the parrot so agitated before. Throwing on a robe, he stumbled to his door and out into the hallway, still not entirely sure why he was responding to the parrot's distress. Standing outside Harriet's door, Harper hesitated. It was the middle of the night. He would look foolish if nothing was wrong. But something in Uriah's desperate calls had struck a chord of genuine concern. He knocked softly at first, then more firmly. "Harriet, are you all right?" No response came from within the apartment. Harper's worry deepened. He tried the door handle and found it unlocked, unusual for the security-conscious Harriet. Pushing the door open, he called out again, "Harriet, it is Harper from next door. Is everything okay?" A faint sound from the bedroom drew him forward. There he found Harriet on the floor beside her bed, struggling to breathe, her face contorted in pain. "My chest," she gasped, her hand clutching at her heart. "Cannot to breathe." Harper didn't hesitate, immediately calling for an ambulance while trying to make Harriet as comfortable as possible. The paramedics arrived quickly, praising Harper for his timely call. "Another half hour and it might have been too late," one of them told him as they prepared to transport Harriet to the hospital. "How did you know to check on her?" Harper stood in the doorway, stunned by the realization. "My parrot," he said, sounding incredulous even to his own ears. "My parrot was calling for help." The paramedic gave him an odd look, but was too busy attending to Harriet to question further. When Harper returned to his apartment, Uriah had settled down, watching him with those knowing eyes. "Harriet sick," the parrot said simply. "Yes," Harper agreed, approaching the cage with newfound respect. "How did you know?" Uriah tilted his head, but offered no explanation that Harper could understand. Instead, the parrot began preening his feathers, as if nothing unusual had happened. Harper sat on his couch, mind racing. How had Uriah known Harriet was in trouble? The parrot had never shown any particular attachment to her. They'd only met once. Yet somehow Uriah had sensed her distress through the walls of their apartments. A week passed. Harriet returned from the hospital, grateful for Harper's intervention that had saved her life. "The doctors said I had a minor heart attack," she explained as they shared tea in her apartment. "If you hadn't found me when you did—" "It wasn't really me," Harper admitted, still struggling to explain. "It was Uriah." Harriet smiled indulgently, clearly not taking his explanation seriously. "Well, give that clever bird an extra treat from me." But Harper could not dismiss what had happened so easily. Uriah's uncanny perception had saved a life, and Harper couldn't help, wondering if this was a one-time occurrence or if the parrot possessed some extraordinary sense that allowed him to detect danger or distress. His answer would come sooner than expected, and in a way that would change not only his understanding of Uriah, but the course of his own life as well. One evening, as Harper was working late on his manuscript edits, Uriah began pacing in his cage, his feathers ruffled in agitation. "Bad man," the parrot muttered. "Bad man coming." Harper looked up from his computer, frowning. "What is wrong, Uriah?" "Bad man," Uriah repeated, more insistently this time. "Watch out. Bad man." Before Harper could make sense of the warning, a knock came at his door. Cautious after Uriah's strange behavior, Harper approached the door and peered through the peephole. Isaac stood in the hallway, smiling pleasantly. He was the building's maintenance manager, recently hired and still unfamiliar to most residents. Harper had only met him once when he'd come to fix the leaky faucet in the bathroom. "Just checking the smoke detectors," Isaac called through the door. "Building regulations." Harper hesitated, glancing back at Uriah, who was now making distressed sounds in his cage. The parrot's behavior was unsettling, but it seemed unreasonable to refuse entry to the maintenance manager for a routine check. Reluctantly, Harper opened the door. "Come in. The detector is in the hallway here." Isaac stepped inside, toolbox in hand, his smile never quite reaching his eyes. "One a tea take but a minute." So he glanced around the apartment, his gaze lingering on Harper's laptop and the stack of first-edition books on the shelf, a collection Harper had inherited from his grandfather and his most prized possession. As Isaac moved toward the smoke detector, Uriah's agitation increased. Bad man," the parrot screeched, causing Isaac to start. "Quite a vocabulary your bird has there," Isaac commented, his smile tightening. "He's imaginative," Harper replied uncomfortably, watching as Isaac climbed onto the stepladder beneath the smoke detector. But Isaac's attention seemed more focused on surveying the apartment than on the actual detector. His eyes kept darting to the valuable books, to Harper's laptop, to the small safe in the corner of the room where Harper kept important documents and the few pieces of jewelry he'd inherited from his mother. "Everything look okay with the detector?" Harper asked, growing increasingly uneasy as Uriah continued his warnings. "Oh yes," Isaac replied, climbing down. "All in working order. I'll just check the one in the bedroom now." "I didn't know there was one in the bedroom," Harper said, suddenly alert. There wasn't a smoke detector in his bedroom. He'd been meaning to install one himself. Isaac's expression changed subtly, his friendly facade slipping for just a moment. "High standard in all apartments," he said smoothly, already moving toward the bedroom door. "Bad man! Thief! Thief!" Uriah screeched, flapping his wings frantically. Isaac turned, his eyes narrowing at the parrot. "That bird makes quite a racket. Have you considered giving him away? I know someone who might take him." A chill ran down Harper's spine. Uriah's warnings, Harriet's near miss, and now this strange behavior from Isaac. It couldn't all be coincidence. "Actually," Harper said, stepping between Isaac and the bedroom door, "I just remembered I have an important call coming in any minute. Could you finish the check another time?" Isaac's smile disappeared completely. "It'll only take a moment," he insisted, his hand moving toward his pocket. Uriah let out a screech so loud and piercing that both men flinched. In that moment of distraction, Harper noticed something protruding from Isaac's toolbox. Not tools, but a pair of gloves, and what looked like lock-picking equipment. Realization dawned. The new maintenance manager, the mysterious check of non-existent smoke detectors, the careful observation of valuables. Harper had nearly invited a thief into his home, one who had likely been targeting other apartments in the building as well. "I think you should leave now," Harper said firmly, reaching for his phone, "or I'll call the police." Isaac's demeanor changed instantly. Gone was any pretense of friendliness. "You're making a mistake," he growled, taking a step toward Harper. But Uriah wasn't finished. The parrot began mimicking the sound of police sirens with perfect accuracy, so convincingly that Isaac glanced nervously toward the window. Taking advantage of the distraction, Harper moved quickly to the door, throwing it open. "Leave now, or I really will call the police." Isaac hesitated, weighing his options, before finally gathering his toolbox and backing toward the door. "Your bird's crazy," he muttered, "and so are you." As Isaac retreated down the hallway, Harper quickly locked the door, heart pounding. He turned to Uriah, who had finally quieted down. "Bad man gone," Uriah said with what sounded remarkably like satisfaction. Harper approached the cage, still trying to process what had just happened. "How did you know?" he asked, not really expecting an answer. "How do you always know?" Uriah tilted his head, regarding Harper with those intelligent eyes. "Uriah watches," the parrot said simply. "Uriah sees." And in that moment, Harper began to understand that he hadn't just acquired a pet at the auction. He had found a guardian, a sentinel with extraordinary perceptiveness. What he didn't yet realize was how much more there was to discover about Uriah's abilities, or how the bond forming between them would soon be tested in ways neither could imagine. The mystery of Uriah's past, of how he had developed such remarkable awareness, and of what dangers still lurked in their future, remained to be unraveled. But one thing was already clear. The parrot that no one had wanted at the auction was proving to be the most valuable companion Harper could have found. The morning after the incident with Isaac, Harper reported everything to the police. Officer Rowland was skeptical at first, especially when Harper explained how his parrot had warned him about the fake maintenance man. "Your bird told you he was a thief." Rowland raised an eyebrow, scribbling notes without much enthusiasm. "Not exactly," Harper explained, feeling foolish. But Uriah sensed something was wrong. He's unusually perceptive. Just then, Uriah, who had been silently observing from his perch, spoke up. "Bad man, gloves in box, pick locks." Rowland's pen stopped mid-stroke. He stared at the parrot with newfound interest. "Did that bird just describe lock-picking tools?" "I told you, he's observant," Harper said. "He noticed things about Isaac that I missed." This detail was specific enough to catch Rowland's attention. He promised to investigate Isaac and check with other buildings in the area for similar reports of maintenance-related thefts. As he was leaving, Rowland cast another curious glance at Uriah. "That is some bird you've got there." After Rowland left, Harper sat across from Uriah's perch, studying the parrot with growing curiosity. "I think it's time we learn more about each other," he said, "starting with where you came from before Victor's shop." Uriah tilted his head, his amber eyes unblinking. "Victor good. Before Victor bad place." Harper leaned forward. "Bad place? What bad place, Uriah?" The parrot rustled his feathers, seeming agitated at the memory. "Dark, loud, many birds. Uriah learn watch. Listen. Stay quiet." Harper felt a chill as he began to piece together what Uriah was describing, likely a smuggling operation or an illegal breeding facility. African greys were valuable, and the illegal exotic pet trade was notorious for its cruel conditions. This would explain Uriah's hypervigilance and his ability to detect threats. "And Victor rescued you?" "Victor find Uriah. Victor teach words, good man." Over the next few days, Harper dove into research about African grey parrots, discovering they were among the most intelligent bird species, known for their exceptional cognitive abilities, problem-solving skills, and capacity to understand complex concepts. Their ability to mimic wasn't just about repeating sounds. They could associate words with meanings and even use language in context. Yet everything Harper read suggested that while African greys were remarkably intelligent, Uriah's ability to sense danger and understand human behavior went beyond what was documented. The parrot seemed to possess an almost preternatural awareness of people's intentions and health conditions. One evening, as Harper worked on his laptop, he found himself wondering about Victor, the elderly man who had owned Uriah before him. On impulse, he searched for Victor exotic pets and was surprised to find several articles about Victor Lawrence, a former wildlife veterinarian who had dedicated his later years to rehabilitating illegally trafficked exotic birds. "Listen to this, Uriah," Harper said, reading from one article. "Dr. Lawrence became known for his work with particularly traumatized birds, developing innovative methods to help them overcome past abuse and build trust with humans." Uriah perked up at the mention of Victor, moving closer on his perch. "Victor help birds. Victor help Uriah." Harper continued reading, discovering that Victor had been something of a pioneer in understanding avian cognition. He had worked with researchers from major universities, contributing to studies on bird intelligence and emotional capacity. Before opening his small exotic pet shop, which specialized in rehoming rescued animals, he had traveled extensively, documenting the illegal wildlife trade. "There is a picture here," Harper said, turning the laptop so Uriah could see. The image showed a younger Victor, standing in what looked like a makeshift clinic in a tropical location, surrounded by rescued birds. Uriah made a soft sound, recognizing his former owner. "Victor Brave. Stop, bad men." Harper looked more closely at the photo-s caption, "Dr. Lawrence assisting with a raid on an illegal wildlife trafficking operation in Central America." In the background of the image, barely noticeable, was a small grey bird with a distinctive mark above its beak, a young Uriah. "Is that you?" Harper asked, pointing to the image. "Is that where Victor found you?" Uriah bobbed his head, the parrot equivalent of a nod. "Bad men hurt birds. Victor save." The pieces were coming together. Uriah had been rescued from traffickers by Victor, who had then spent years working with the traumatized bird, helping him develop his natural intelligence. No wonder Uriah was so exceptional. He had been mentored by someone who truly understood avian cognition and had dedicated his life to helping birds reach their full potential. As if confirming Harper's thoughts, Uriah added, "Victor say, Uriah special. Uriah help people now." The following day, Harper received a call from Officer Rowland. "You were right about your maintenance man," Rowland said without preamble. "His real name is Isaac Mercer, and he's wanted in 3 counties for a series of burglaries. He was using maintenance jobs to case apartments and steal from residents." "Has he been arrested?" Harper asked. "Not yet, but we were close. Your report gave us the break we needed." Rowland paused. "I'm still having trouble believing a bird tipped you off." "Uriah is special," Harper said simply. "I do say so. Listen, I am working with Detective Patrick Cooper on this case. He'd like to speak with you, and your bird, believe it or not. Can you come down to the station tomorrow?" Harper agreed, wondering what this Detective Cooper might want with Uriah. When he shared the news with the parrot, Uriah seemed unperturbed. "Help catch bad man," he said confidently. The next morning, Harper arrived at the police station with Uriah in a travel cage. He had been unsure about bringing the parrot, but Uriah had become agitated when Harper suggested leaving him at home, insisting in his own way that he needed to come along. Detective Cooper turned out to be younger than Harper expected, with keen eyes and an intensity that suggested he didn't miss much. His office was cluttered with case files, and he cleared a space on his desk for Uriah's cage with surprising care. "I've been hearing interesting things about your feathered friend," Cooper said, studying Uriah with genuine curiosity. "Rowland thinks I'm crazy for wanting to talk to you about a parrot, but I've learned to follow unusual leads." Harper explained how Uriah had warned him about Isaac and helped save Harriet's life. Cooper listened without interruption, taking notes and occasionally glancing at Uriah, who was watching the detective with equal interest. "What makes this relevant to your investigation?" Harper finally asked. Cooper leaned back in his chair. "Isaac Mercer isn't just a burglar. We believe he is connected to a larger operation, a sophisticated ring that targets specific items for wealthy collectors. Not just any valuables, but particular pieces with historical significance or cultural value." "Like my first edition books?" Harper asked, remembering how Isaac's gaze had lingered on them. "Exactly like those," Cooper nodded. "We've been tracking this group for months. They're methodical, well-informed, and they always seem to know exactly what their targets possess and where it is kept, which makes me wonder how they are getting their information," Harper finished. "Precisely." Cooper tapped his pen on the desk. "And now we have Isaac, who used a maintenance cover to access apartments. But here's where it gets interesting. In several cases, the burglaries occurred in homes where no maintenance was ever requested or performed." "So they have another way in," Harper said, following the detective's reasoning. "Or another source of information," Cooper corrected. "And that S where your Victor Lawrence comes into the picture." Harper blinked in surprise. "You know about Victor? I did some research after Rowland mentioned your parrot's unusual abilities. Victor Lawrence was more than just a veterinarian and shop owner. Before his death, He was consulting with authorities on a case involving stolen artifacts being transported alongside illegally trafficked wildlife. This was news to Harper. You think there is a connection between Victor S. work and these burglaries? Cooper S. expression grew serious. I think it is possible that whatever Victor was investigating before his death might be related to what we are seeing now, and I think your parrot, he nodded toward Uriah, might have seen or heard things while in Victor's care that could help us. Harper looked at Uriah, who had gone very still, listening to every word. Sire, but how would we know? It is not like he can tell us directly. Birds like Uriah don't just mimic sounds. They associate them with experiences, with contexts, Cooper explained. If Uriah was around when Victor was working on this case, he might have picked up on conversations, names, locations. Man with scar, Uriah suddenly interjected, his voice so clear that both men turned to him in surprise. Man with scar visit Victor. Talk about treasure. Cooper leaned forward. His interest piqued. What man with a scar, Uriah? Can you tell us more? Tall man, scar on face. Uriah traced a line from his eye down his cheek with his beak. Victor not like, say dangerous. Harper and Cooper exchanged glances. Is he describing someone from Victor S. past? Harper wondered aloud. Or someone currently involved in our case? Cooper said thoughtfully. He reached for a file on his desk and pulled out a series of surveillance photos. Uriah, do you recognize any of these men? He held up the photos one by one. Uriah showed no reaction until the fifth image, a tall man with sharp features and a thin scar running from his right eye to his jaw. The parrot became instantly agitated. Bad man. Victor say stay away. Cooper's expression turned grim. That is Gerard Blackwood. He is suspected of being one of the masterminds behind the theft ring we were investigating. He has connections to both the art world and the black market for exotic species. You think Victor knew him? Harper asked. I think Victor was helping us build a case against him, Cooper replied. And I think that his exotic pet shop ended up at auction after his death, despite its success. Someone wanted to scatter the evidence, including Uriah. The implications were startling. Had Victor been involved in something dangerous before his death? Had Uriah witnessed conversations that made him a potential threat to powerful people? It would explain why no one had bid on such an extraordinary bird at the auction. Perhaps word had been spread to avoid the parrot with too many memories. We need to be careful, Cooper warned, lowering his voice. If Blackwood or his associates realize that Uriah is with you and that he is communicating with the police, you could both be in danger. Harper looked at Uriah, feeling a surge of protectiveness. What do we do? For now, we keep this quiet. I'll assign an officer to patrol your building regularly, and I want you to report anything unusual immediately. Cooper handed Harper his card with a direct number. Meanwhile, I'll dig deeper into Victor S.'s connection to our case. As they prepared to leave, Uriah fixed his amber eyes on Cooper. Catch bad men, the parrot said firmly. Uriah help. Cooper smiled, reaching out to gently touch the parrot's cage. I believe you will, Uriah, I believe you will. The ride home was quiet. Harper lost in thought about everything he'd learned. Uriah, too, seemed contemplative, his usual chatter replaced by watchful silence. The parrot that no one had wanted at the auction was proving to be not just a remarkable companion, but potentially a key witness in a major investigation. As they entered the apartment, Harper's phone rang. It was Harriet, her voice unusually urgent. Harper, dear, there was someone asking about you and your parrot earlier today, a well-dressed man with a scar on his face. He said he was an old associate of the previous owner and wanted to purchase the bird for sentimental reasons. Harper felt his blood run cold. What did you tell him? That I didn't know anything about a parrot, Harriet replied. Something felt off about him. After what happened with that fake maintenance man, I've learned to be cautious. Thank you, Harper said fervently. You did the right thing. Please, if he comes back, do not engage with him at all. Just call this number. He gave her Detective Cooper's direct line. After hanging up, Harper secured his apartment, double-checking the locks and drawing the blinds. Uriah watched from his perch, unusually somber. We need to be careful, Harper told him, echoing Cooper's warning. It seems your past is catching up to us. Victor knew. Uriah said softly. Victor protect Uriah, now Harper protect Uriah. And Uriah protects Harper, Harper added with a small smile, remembering how the parrot had already saved him from Isaac. What Harper didn't yet realize was how much deeper this protection would need to go, or how the bond between them would be tested in the coming days. The man with the scar had found them once. He would certainly try again. And when he did, Harper and Uriah would need to rely on each other's strengths to survive what was coming. As night fell, Harper moved Uriah's cage away from the windows, creating a safer space in the interior of the apartment. The parrot settled in, his eyes reflecting the dim light as he kept watch over his new home, and the human who had given him a second chance when no one else would. "We'll figure this out," Harper promised, more to himself than to Uriah. "Together." "Together," Uriah echoed, the word carrying more meaning than Harper could possibly know. The next morning, Harper woke to Uriah's urgent calls. "Phone! Answer phone!" Harper fumbled for his cell phone, which was indeed ringing. Detective Cooper's number flashed on the screen. "We have got a problem," Cooper said without preamble. "Isaac Mercer was found in his hotel room last night. Someone got to him before we could make an arrest. He is alive, but in critical condition." Harper sat up straight, fully awake now. "You think Blackwood silenced him? It fits the pattern. Blackwood eliminates loose ends." Cooper's voice grew more urgent. "But there is more. We found notes in Mercer's room with your address circled and the words Grey Parrot underlined." A chill ran down Harper's spine. "They know about Uriah." "Exactly. I am sending an officer to your building right now, but I need you to pack a bag and be ready to move to a safe location." Harper's mind raced. "Where should I go?" "We have a safe house prepared. Officer Rowland will escort you there. Donity, tell anyone where you're going, not even your neighbor." After hanging up, Harper moved quickly, throwing essentials into a backpack while explaining the situation to Uriah. The parrot remained unusually quiet, watching Harper with those intelligent eyes that seemed to understand everything. "Danger coming," Uriah finally said as Harper prepared his travel cage. "Must hurry." Just then, a knock came at the door. Harper froze, then cautiously approached the peephole. Relief washed over him when he saw Officer Rowland's familiar face. "Sir, Detective Cooper sent me," Rowland explained as Harper let him in. "We need to move quickly. The safe house is—" "Names!" Uriah suddenly interrupted, his feathers ruffling in alarm. "Say names." Harper and Rowland exchanged confused glances. "What does he mean?" Rowland asked. "I think he wants to verify who you are," Harper realized. "Rowland, could you tell him your full name and maybe mention Cooper's name too?" Rowland looked skeptical but complied. "First Officer Roland Matthews, sent by Detective Patrick Cooper." Uriah visibly relaxed. "Safe, good man." Harper quickly finished packing Uriah's supplies. "Sorry about that. He has been on edge since everything started." "Smart bird," Rowland commented. "If only people were as good at spotting danger." They hurried down to Roland's unmarked police car, Harper carrying Uriah's travel cage covered with a light cloth to keep the parrot calm and hidden from view. As they drove away from the apartment building, Harper noticed a black SUV parked across the street, its tinted windows concealing whoever might be watching from inside. "I think we're being observed," he murmured to Rowland, who nodded grimly. "We expected that. That's why we have a decoy team arriving at your building in about 20 minutes, making it look like we're moving you to a different location." The safe house turned out to be a modest cabin on the outskirts of the city, secluded enough to provide privacy, but close enough for quick police response if needed. As Rowland helped Harper settle in, he explained the situation further. "Cooper believes Blackwood is after something specific, information that Victor had collected about the theft ring's operations and clients." "And he thinks Uriah might have heard this information?" Harper asked, setting up the parrot's perch by a window overlooking the surrounding woods. Rowland nodded. "African greys have exceptional memories. If Victor discussed his findings around Uriah, there is a chance the parrot remembers details that could help us build a case against Blackwood." After Rowland left, promising to return with Cooper the next morning, Harper spent the evening talking quietly with Uriah, trying to coax any memories the parrot might have of Victor S. work. "Victor, hide something," Uriah eventually offered, seeming to concentrate hard on forming the words. "Important papers, secret place." "What secret place, Uriah? Do you remember?" Uriah bobbed his head excitedly. "Bird room, under floor. Victor say, keep safe from bad men." Harper's pulse quickened. "The bird room at Victor's shop? There was something hidden under the floor?" "Yes, important." Uriah flapped his wings for emphasis. "Names, pictures, bad men stealing." It made sense. If Victor had been collecting evidence against Blackwood's operation, he would have needed to hide it somewhere secure. And what better place than his own shop, in a room where he worked with his beloved birds? Harper immediately called Cooper, sharing Uriah's revelation. The detective sounded hopeful for the first time since they met. "The building that housed Victor's shop is still vacant," Cooper said. "The auction cleared out the inventory, but the structure itself is waiting for a new tenant. If there is something hidden there, we need to find it before Blackwood does." They agreed to meet at the shop early the next morning. Harper tried to sleep, but his mind kept returning to the danger they were facing and the remarkable bird who had brought them to this point. Uriah, for his part, seemed more at peace than he had been in days, as if sharing Victor's secret had lifted a weight from him. Dawn had barely broken when Cooper arrived with Roland and another officer. The drive to Victor's former shop was tense, everyone aware that they might be racing against Blackwood's men to find the hidden evidence. The shop sat dark and empty, a leasing sign hanging in the front window. Cooper used a key provided by the property manager to let them in, and they made their way through the dusty interior to the back room where Victor had kept his birds. "Where, Uriah?" Harper asked, setting the Parrot's travel cage on a counter. "Tell us, where did Victor hide the papers?" Uriah surveyed the room, then pointed with his beak toward a corner where larger cages had once stood. "There, under big cage." Cooper and Roland moved quickly, pulling back the remnants of old newspaper that still covered the floor. Beneath them was ordinary-looking wooden flooring, but when Cooper tapped along the boards, one section sounded different, hollow. "Here," he said, kneeling to examine the spot more closely. Using a pocket knife, he carefully pried up one of the floorboards, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Inside was a waterproof document case, sealed and undisturbed. Cooper carefully removed it, his expression serious as he opened the case and examined its contents. "This is it," he said quietly, spreading out documents on the counter. "Client lists, transaction records, photographs, everything we need to connect Blackwood to both the artifact thefts and the wildlife trafficking." Among the papers was a handwritten letter from Victor, addressed to authorities. In it, the elderly veterinarian explained how he had stumbled onto Blackwood's operation while working to rescue trafficked birds, and how he had spent years gathering evidence against the criminal enterprise. "Victor knew they were onto him," Cooper said, reading through the letter. "He suspected he didn't have much time left. Listen to this. If anything happens to me, trust Uriah. He has been my witness, my recorder. He knows the voices, the faces. He will recognize the danger when it comes." Harper looked at Uriah with newfound understanding. Victor knew Uriah would be able to identify Blackwood and his associates. That is why he was so careful about who adopted him after his death. "And why no one bid on him at the auction," Roland added. "Word must have been spread to avoid that particular bird." "No one but you," Cooper said to Harper. "You weren't part of their world, had no connection to the case. You just saw a bird that needed a home." Their moment of discovery was interrupted by the sound of a car pulling up outside. Through the grimy windows they could see a black SUV, the same one Harper had noticed outside his apartment building. "Blackwood," Cooper said grimly, drawing his weapon. "Roland, get the evidence to the car. Harper, take Uriah and stay low." But before they could move, the front door crashed open. Gerard Blackwood himself stood in the doorway, his scar vivid against his pale skin, flanked by two armed men. "Detective Cooper," Blackwood said smoothly. "So I see we had the same idea this morning. Unfortunately, I can't allow you to leave with those documents." "It's over, Blackwood," Cooper replied, his gun trained on the crime boss. We have enough evidence to put you away for good. Blackwood smiled coldly. Evidence has a way of disappearing, as do witnesses. His gaze shifted to Uriah, who had gone very still in his cage. That bird has been a particular nuisance. Victor should have known better than to keep such an observant pet. "Bad man!" Uriah suddenly screeched, his voice cutting through the tension. "Killed Victor! Saw you!" Blackwood's smile faltered for the first time. "Clever bird. Yes, I paid Victor a visit before his unfortunate heart attack. We had a discussion about his retirement plans. He should have taken my generous offer." Harper felt a surge of anger. "You killed him because he was gathering evidence against you." "I eliminated a threat to my business," Blackwood corrected coldly, "just as I am about to do now." What happened next occurred so quickly that Harper could barely follow it. As Blackwood raised his weapon, Uriah let out a piercing screech that startled everyone in the room. In that moment of distraction, Cooper and Rowland moved simultaneously, diving for cover while getting off shots that took down Blackwood's two henchmen. Blackwood himself recovered quickly, aiming at Harper, who was exposed beside Uriah's cage. But before he could fire, the parrot somehow managed to unlatch his cage door, a trick Harper had never seen him perform, and flew directly at Blackwood's face, wings flapping and beak snapping. The attack was brief but effective. Blackwood staggered backward, dropping his gun as he tried to shield his face from Uriah's assault. Cooper seized the opportunity, tackling Blackwood to the ground and securing him with handcuffs. Uriah, his mission accomplished, flew back to Harper, landing on his shoulder. "Safe now," the parrot said, his voice returning to its usual calm tone. "Bad man caught." In the aftermath, as police swarmed the scene and Blackwood was led away, Detective Cooper approached Harper and Uriah, his expression one of profound respect. "I've never seen anything like that," he admitted. "Your parrot just helped us take down one of the most dangerous criminal operators in the city." Harper stroked Uriah's feathers gently. He was just finishing what Victor started. "Victor, good man," Uriah agreed softly. "Victor, proud." The evidence Victor had gathered proved even more valuable than they had initially realized. It led to the dismantling of Blackwood's entire network, the recovery of millions in stolen artifacts, and the rescue of dozens of illegally trafficked exotic animals. Many of these animals were rehomed through proper wildlife rehabilitation centers, carrying on Victor's legacy. In recognition of Uriah's role in the case, the police department held a special ceremony, presenting Harper with a civilian commendation and even having a small medal made for Uriah's perch. The story of the parrot who had helped bring down a criminal enterprise captured media attention across the country. But fame didn't change the bond that had formed between Harper and Uriah. If anything, their shared adventure had deepened their connection. Harper used his unexpected publicity to secure a book deal, telling the story of Victor, Uriah, and the wildlife trafficking that continued to threaten endangered species worldwide. Harriet recovered fully from her health scare and became a regular visitor, always bringing treats for Uriah and listening with delight to his growing vocabulary. Cooper and Rowland stopped by occasionally as well, sometimes consulting with Harper and Uriah on other cases where detailed observation was needed. "You know," Cooper said during one such visit, watching as Uriah demonstrated his remarkable ability to mimic specific voices, "there is something I'd always wondered about. How did Uriah know Harriet was in trouble that first night? They had only met once." Harper had wondered the same thing. "I have a theory," he said. "Victor trained him to recognize signs of distress, changes in breathing, facial expressions, body language. Uriah doesn't just mimic sounds, he associates them with what he sees." "A parrot who can read human behavior," Cooper mused. "Victor was even more brilliant than I realized." "Victor, teach Uriah watch," the parrot contributed. "Always watch. Help people." Several months later, Harper used his earnings from the book to purchase the building that had housed Victor's shop. With Cooper's help, he renovated it into a combined bookstore and exotic bird rescue center, where abandoned or confiscated parrots could find new homes with properly educated owners. Uriah became the mascot of the center, helping Harper evaluate potential adopters and demonstrating to visitors the remarkable intelligence and sensitivity of these often misunderstood birds. His ability to detect health issues made him particularly valuable in monitoring the rescued birds' well-being. "You know," Harper told Uriah one evening as they sat together in the renovated bird room, now filled with happy, healthy parrots, "no one wanted you at that auction. Even I wasn't planning to bid that day." "Uriah, wait," the parrot replied sagely. "Wait for right person. Harper, right person." Harper smiled, realizing how true that was. They had found each other at exactly the right moment, each providing what the other needed most. Harper giving Uriah a home and purpose after Victor's death, and Uriah giving Harper protection, companionship, and ultimately a more meaningful direction for his life. The parrot that no one had wanted had proven to be the most valuable companion imaginable. And in the quiet moments, when the shop was closed and they were alone together, Harper sometimes thought he could feel Victor's approval, his satisfaction at knowing his beloved bird had found exactly where he belonged. Outside, the city continued its rhythms, its dangers and its wonders. But inside, Harper and Uriah had created something special. A sanctuary built on trust, on second chances, and on the extraordinary bond between a man and a parrot who had each seen something in the other that no one else had bothered to notice. "Together," Uriah would often say, settling on Harper's shoulder as they closed up the shop each evening. "Always," Harper would reply, knowing it was a promise they would both keep for many years to come. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the world of captivating stories. I trust you found today's narrative as engaging as I did. If you enjoyed this exploration into fascinating and compelling narratives, kindly indicate your appreciation by liking this video. Are you watching on mobile? Show your appreciation with a double tap for hype. For more captivating stories and journeys into the heart of compelling storytelling, please subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss a single upload. Your thoughts and interpretations are most welcome. Please share your perspectives on today's story in the comments below. And if you believe others would find this content engaging, please consider sharing the video with your network. Until our next journey into the world of captivating tales, I bid you farewell.